This is Nala Ray. Now, before she was a married Christian lady on Instagram, speaking the good word of how Jesus Christ radically saved her.
God radically saved me from this darkness.
And even before she was the most prolific, you could say, student of ye olde Belle Delphine during her extremely successful OnlyFans run, Miss Nala Ray was ye olde Fitness Nala. Interestingly enough, she actually began her internet stint in simply trying to be a little bit of a fitness influencer. Now, according to her interview with Michael Knowles, of which we will be revisiting multiple sections of throughout the course of this video, Nala didn't really start dipping into performing on OnlyFans until ye olde 2020 pandemic shutdown. Like very many ladies who also joined the OnlyFans boom during this time due to the massive amounts of layoffs that occurred due to some businesses shutting down and just some people being unable to work because they were locked in their homes, Nala Fitness morphed over into a early, I wouldn't say early, but at least she was one of the earlier adopters into creating an OnlyFans due to the fact that she already had a bit of an audience due to her Fitness Nala Instagram. In fact, if you were to preview her Instagram, you can actually see a little bit of the timeline, just a smidge of how Nala went from being relatively normal looking into the clown that we will be referring to today. And it is important to note that I am not simply calling Nala a clown simply because she has red hair, but because of the caricature of a human being she turned herself into. Because this is how very many people have been introduced into Nala. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, this is the legacy our lady friend has left for herself. Which, to be fair, her transition to Christianity has been rather recent, all things considered. But no one, and I mean no one, judging by any of these internet comments, is going to let her forget where she came from anytime soon. So, to give you guys a smidge, a taste of Nala, we're going to have to go through this montage one last time.
Okay,
and if I do find someone, it has to be a regular person. Cannot be anyone famous. I don't give a about status. Has to be regular. Normal.
Regular person.
Because I'm so not normal. I need someone to equalize me. If they're crazy and I'm crazy, it just doesn't work. So, yeah.
I cheat all the time.
Are you a cheater?
Yeah. Repetitively. Unfortunately.
I was on another podcast and this clip went viral of me saying that I love cheating. It's actually my biggest fantasy.
It broke up and then just
fuck you want.
Yeah, absolutely. But the cheating is like, it's a fantasy. So it's like, this is exciting for me to cheat.
Wait, I thought you said you like to cheat.
And also, I do.
On
More of a controlled crazy. So I feel like I'm probably a 7-8.
On the
definitely not
scale.
Uncapped yet. If you start crying in front of me, I'm just gonna like laugh. I really will. Like that's like really weird for me. But if you're with someone and you have a girl, I'm gonna sit on your and be like, isn't my tighter? Isn't it better? Isn't that just hot?
I get bored. It's not that the partner's not good enough. It's that I'm bored. I constantly want new things. I am like constantly on the lookout for like something that's gonna just spark me.
I literally feel like sex is such a huge part of relationships. I've literally been hearing my dad bitch about how my mom doesn't give him pussy, and I'm just like, God damn,
Wow.
just go get it.
And let's move on to the what I'm most excited to talk about. No, wait, we're gonna get into that.
Thought about dating an MMA fighter maybe, or
No, listen, because I'd wrestle them all the time.
you wrestle them?
I would grapple all day long. Like I would wear them out because they hurt me, you know. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. This is hot. I'm gonna cheat on you.
Yeah.
Oh, because I need the satisfaction that I fucking want.
Crazy.
I'm dominant.
You're dominant?
Yes. It just says daddy.
In your past, Nala, how many guys have you had sex with?
Oh my, I don't think I could count.
See, it is a fantasy. You know what I mean? Like it's the compromise that you make in that sexual act is hot to me. So, yes, ma'am.
Wait, sorry. You said help people cheating?
Okay, so like if they have a partner,
yes,
like and I'm single, and we have sex.
So you're the homewrecker.
No, I'm not. So for me, if you made that decision and you're in the relationship, I don't push anyone to do anything.
That's so cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
To what?
I'm daddy.
Your daddy.
Uh-huh.
I'm
daddy.
sorry. I don't want to be an asshole.
Okay, so your daddy.
I'm daddy. Yes.
Can you
Yes,
boost,
yes.
boost the audio a little bit?
This is cool.
But if you want to have sex with me and you keep pushing, that's on you. You wanted out of that relationship before.
Now, those clips were, of course, a huge collection of the multiple different appearances she had in multiple different podcasts, some of which include the Whatever podcast, by the way, of Nala absolutely making a little bit of a fool of herself, which is how most people would understand her, as an incredibly sexually verbose, out there person. But of course, I kind of figured that Nala was a little bit sharper than most people would ever give her credit for. In fact, I've always kind of peeped onto that this was definitely a huge curated performance. It's not unlike that one scene from that one Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales, where his teacher notices that he answered every single question incorrectly, and the only way he could have answered every single question incorrectly was if he knew every single correct answer. That kind of sums up Nala's performance here, because that's what all that was. That's not the real Nala Ray. In fact, it's one of those times when the first time I saw her on the Whatever podcast, I found myself a little saddened that I couldn't challenge her directly to stop behaving in this clear form of affectation. You know, one of my favorite clips that I posted way back when, early in my YouTube career, was a clip I got from G. Craig Lewis. And he's a preacher who made a strong, poignant point about what he called the spirit of affectation. I'm going to roll this clip here because, there's no reason for me to summarize it when I have the clip. So to get an understanding of what I'm referring to, we're going to let him speak.
This is the spirit called affectation. The spirit of affectation. That's the pretender spirit. Webster's defines affectation as a show, a pretense, or display. Behavior that is assumed rather than natural. Artificiality, a particular habit as of speech or dress adopted to give a false impression. Affectation, this is what God told me, y'all, and I'm going to try to give you this and we're going to try to close this out. Affectation is planted into a person through some kind of deficit or traumatic experience that makes them feel the need to be proven with their actions or abilities. Rape, molestation, incest, abandonment, neglect, abuse, or talent affirmations, etc. These things make a person, when they happen to a person, the person feels a need to pretend that they're okay and to show others that they're okay. So rather than coming broken, are y'all listening to me? Rather than coming broken, they put on a false identity. So in their youth, and this usually happens with musicians and people that are talented or have talents, musicians and different ones, people clap and applaud while they're playing. But who they are, nobody affirms. So their talent is always affirmed. But who they are inside, internally, is never affirmed. Then if there's no man there who gives the identity and the affirmation to the child, then he begins to try to use his music or his talent or ability to seek affirmation. That's why right now, the best musicians, the best singers, the best actors, the best folks that's in the spotlight are always perverts. Always perverts. They're always perverted. You know why? Because they were affirmed on the outside, but they were never dealt with on the inside. Because people would rather use their talent and be entertained than dig into them
Like I said, I've always known that Nala's behavior in these clips is her clearly putting on an act. And I always knew that Nala was pretty intelligent because the way she performed herself as an incredibly available sexual person only ever added to the huge amount of success she got in her OnlyFans. Nala goes on to confirm that this caricature of herself she created, or this performance on the Michael Knowles interview, is something that she made up due to her, interestingly enough, studying young men and what they liked sexually.
I was never about like sleeping around, but my image online needed to be that so that other people so the people that buy my content are what? Men. Men, if they think that they have a chance with me, they'll buy my content because they just want to speak to me, right? So I'm really good at marketing myself in that manner to think that they could potentially have a chance with me. I never marketed that I had a boyfriend. It was just people I was sleeping with. And that's how I would market my OnlyFans in the messages. It was like, oh, I met this guy at the bar. It's my boyfriend. Right. I met this guy at the mall. It's my boyfriend. But most of the time they wouldn't show their faces, so you really couldn't tell. So I'm a genius at marketing that way. I really was. I knew what men wanted. I even read some dating books. One of them was called The Game. I can't remember who it was
by. It's like a pickup artist thing,
something like that. Yeah. And I wanted to understand men's brains to be able to do my work correctly.
Now, I'm going to revisit this topic in the future, but the sorrow that I feel it would be a bit remiss to not comment upon how tragic it is that very many women who do take the time to study and learn and understand men only do so to the extent of which they can use what they've learned to extract resources from them. What's painfully more tragic is that it really confirms the amount of intelligence Nala has. Again, Nala doesn't just talk about all the different types of disgusting aspects of being a sex worker and how much she enjoys this stuff just simply because she really enjoys it. In fact, you could probably make an argument that she probably doesn't really like it as much as she performs and proclaims she does, but she did so again with clear understanding of who her audience was. It's important to lay the groundworks of this because of the nature of the subject matter of the rest of this video, that Nala is not an unintelligent person, and Nala does not create performances or create personas on the internet without intent. So what exactly makes Nala special? Essentially, Nala decided, after an extremely successful stint in OnlyFans, to become baptized and reintroduce herself into her Christian faith. Now, it's actually really interesting to take a step back in time and to go a little bit through Nala's history and Christianity from her perspective, at least, again, hearkening back to the Michael Knowles interview, and a little bit to a couple of other articles in the past that have gone over this. Nala refers to herself as a pastor's kid. Basically, Nala from Go, again, I think is really important to highlight, was always performing. Was always putting on an act. When her parents became Christians, her dad ended up becoming a pastor, and she became a representative of the model Christian lady or model Christian child to her church.
When we go to church, there's some face we have to put on. You can't be you need to be the strong people for the church.
Right.
You cannot be the weak ones.
You're the face of the church.
Absolutely. And how to have a relationship with my parents because I was a pastor's kid. I don't think people understand the roles of a pastor's family. And I'm here to share it truly. As a pastor's daughter, you're kind of expected to just be the front, right? So anytime someone's walking in the door when church starts, you're at the front. Yeah. You're the first ones to get there and the last to leave.
And so this clashed with what Nala truly wanted. Nala was still a little bit of a rebellious, a little bit of a wild child, so to speak. And she would oftentimes find herself sneaking out and doing, a whole bunch of crazy things while she was out, sneaking in and out of her house and whatnot. Again, this is kind of seen a little bit, or she describes a little bit of this in her Michael Knowles interview.
You know, the craziest thing is I went through counseling at in my teenage years because I was acting out like crazy, and couldn't explain it to myself. My parents didn't know what was going on with me. And I went to a counselor, and she specifically said the reason I was acting out was because I was looking for love. And
when you say acting out, what do you mean?
So I was like sneaking out of my house when I was 15, 16 years old. Like sneaking out the window at like 1 or 2 in the morning when the whole house had went to sleep, meeting boys, meeting random people. I wasn't drinking, doing drugs, partying. I just wanted to be around people and have freedom. I had such a rush from sneaking out of my house because it was like the only form of freedom that I felt like I had control over.
Now, an interesting thing that we need to discuss about Nala is a concept that I like to call the pressure cooking of sexual repression, which it kind of is what it says it is. And I understand it's not the most scientific or robust term, but essentially it's a phenomenon that I've noticed quite often, but like very many people don't really make videos about this, at least I haven't seen. It's kind of interesting in that regard, but there's this problem with some Christian ladies, and we can extend this. I've noticed a little bit more in Catholic ladies, but we can extend this to Mormons, even though I don't really count them as Christians, but, you know, as sexually repressed beings, they most certainly count. I've noticed that the pressures of avoiding sexuality for them really does a number on them psychologically. A great example of this, actually, I meant to make an entire video similar to this one on Hunter Avalon's wife, Clarissa, is she also seemed to have been afflicted by sexual repression, so much so that she wanted to do an open relationship and then get her cheeks clapped by 5 different black dudes that would be on her. It's a bit much, I'm gonna be honest with you, but it also is a fantastic example of how this happens to very many young ladies. I haven't quite entirely cracked the code on exactly why they get to this state, like what is going on in their upbringing to make them so repressed, just apart from the fact that they aren't supposed to have sex. It seems that there might be a little bit of them being a little bit of them having neuroses about it, a little bit of them having a little too much anxiety, but I haven't exactly figured out all the elements to create this being. But I've noticed that this being exists. The sexually repressed women who, once they break away from their parents or once they break away from the church, then the rubber band flies off. All of that pressure, all of that stretching that was done on the rubber band just shoots. All that pressure that was cooking in the pot explodes. And then they go from one end of the spectrum to the other. Now, to be fair, that pendulum shifting, that doesn't just happen sexually. That happens with conservatives and liberals on the political spectrum all of the bloody time. But in this specific case, if we're going to hone in on Nala, this seems to have been what happened to her. Some of you guys are probably asking, why is Nala important? Well, Nala's important because for some reason, after she made her transition back into being a Christian, there was a lot of attention given to her, and it caused a lot of a kerfluffle. So much so that multiple people are arguing on Twitter about it, and you know how Twitter or X or whatever works. Multiple different people decided to bring her on their channels, to conduct interviews with her, kind of praise her for her transition. And me, I was a little bit more, dare I would say, incredulous. Not that it's impossible for a young lady who was once a thought-able body to rescind her thought-able body ways. It's just kind of, with Nala, it seems a little bit convenient. And knowing what I know about Nala and the way that she puts on an act, it is a little difficult to trust that on the surface, especially when I know, just based on what she said, she's kind of capable of doing more than interviews and little mini TikToks on her TikTok page. I mean, quite a bit. Now, I'm not saying that Nala is incapable of change, and I'm not saying she's incapable of converting. I just think a little bit more needs to be done than just her making TikToks when there's literally a video of her, at least as it's performed, her finding herself meeting a dude at Coachella and having a lot of sex with him.
All right, so we're going to Coachella. This is our warm-up before Coachella. I literally just met this fucker last night at the bar.
I have my misgivings for Nala because I have seen her when she operates outside of that facade, outside of that affectation she created. I remember there was this leaked interview she did on Sharp's podcast. I don't think it was his channel specifically, where because Shannon did not respect Nala from go, I guess just due to her profession or maybe due to his old profession, Nala's performance, her facade, had no effect on him. And because it had no effect on him, you can actually see in this interview, and I won't play all of it, you can see that Nala does not act like she did on the whatever podcast or what she did on these other podcasts. In fact, Nala locks in and zones in, and you can see again that this is a person that can think. She may not have the most extensive vocabulary, make no mistake, but she can logically argue her point. And it's interesting to see how quick of a shift it is when that facade she created has little to no effect. Now, eventually, Nala got pressured so much by Sharp that she ended up just rage quitting the interview. She didn't even complete it.
Exactly. Sure.
Now, there are a couple of moments here that I want to highlight oh so very briefly. It's moments when Nala turns to the camera and she says this twice in response to Sharp telling her to do the Ahego face.
I check. That looks like make the face for the camera.
Did you
make
even
the face for the camera? Make the face for the camera. So we can talk about what. Make the face for the camera.
I'm being demanded to do something.
I'm saying make the face so we can see what we're actually talking about.
I like where we're
here.
going here with you. You're very demanding.
Face.
I'm being demanded to do something once again.
Make the face show.
Now that's a little bit of an odd thing to say. Why is the submissive, sexually open OnlyFans slut highlighting that a man is telling her to do something? Isn't that not part of the caricature you created? Oh, I forgot. Part of the caricature you created is that you're daddy. You know, you're the one that's supposed to be leading the charge. You're the one that's so sexually open that you take control of everyone. So when the script gets flipped, then there's something wrong with it? Well, of course not, right? Like, of course that's not what's really happening. What's really happening is that Nala's daddy BS is just that, BS. And when she gets pressured, she doesn't really know how to respond to that in a calm manner. And the reason why I wanted to include this was to show you guys just how much control Nala has on the deception that she creates with just her performance by itself. What's important to note here is that Nala's deception goes one step deeper. Nala is so deceptive that she can lie with the truth. One of the best examples of this is when she, on the Whatever podcast, kind of makes a point that her dad supports her, that she will even send her dad money. But then later, in our Michael Knowles interview, you'll have Nala say that she was basically disowned by her parents. Now, the interesting thing is, these two things can be true. Her dad could just be a hypocrite, and she's highlighting that subtly, or it's the implication is found in that, even if she isn't saying it directly. It could be the case that Nala was both disowned by her parents, they cut off contact, and then her dad went behind her mother's back and got money from Nala, or Nala gave him some money when he needed it. The problem isn't that these two things can be true at the same time, it's that Nala implied that by giving her father money, that her father was fine with her life choices in pursuing OnlyFans, only to later then imply that he clearly was not okay with it. And as such, even if the two actions could happen truthfully, Nala, interestingly enough, lied with the truth. I gotta tell you, she's like a student of Oberon with this one. You remember when I said that Oberon is such a liar that even when he tells the truth, he lies? Well, this is actually a great example of that.
So my dad, my entire family knows. My mom and I don't speak anymore. She's very religious, conservative. We've never had a good relationship throughout my entire life. It didn't even matter when I was a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
My dad found out and everything, very just supportive of me. He is still a Christian. He loves me. Me and my dad have had a really good relationship throughout the years. I financially support my family because they're retired now and have like kids who have kids, and like my nieces and nephew need like things sometimes. So I love to give money to my family.
I can either quit doing all of this tomorrow, right, and go get a job for like a tenth of this, or I can continue to do this and send you money. Which one do you think they would ask?
My mom would say, absolutely quit. My dad, he'd be like, oh my God, no, why would you ever quit?
Your dad would say that?
My dad would say that I send money to my dad so that he can be comfortable with their
before.
It wasn't as dramatic as the one when I started Only, but I was not like, I was speaking to my dad, but we weren't like good. And my mom and I just like barely ever spoke. So what happened was like my parents kind of disowned me, and like I stopped talking to all my siblings, and it broke me.
Not to bring up a bad memory, but you sort of seem to gloss over that a bit. You say, and so my parents disowned me, and this, but that sounds like catastrophic. I mean, so
it was. We had this like final talk the day before I left for California, and we were just out on my porch in my apartment, and my mom didn't say a word to me the whole time when I was like, they knew I was moving the next day, but didn't say anything to me. Wouldn't even look at me.
Nala doesn't just lie with her actions. Sometimes Nala will just lie, sometimes about simple stuff. For example, in the Michael Knowles interview, Nala said that throughout her entire tenure on OnlyFans, she's only had sex with 3 people. Now, one thing that is true is that the main performer that she was with was her then boyfriend, that she would go on to say became a gay person. I don't know all the details about that. But what isn't true is that Nala did not only have sex with 3 people throughout her entire tenure. I actually had to go and conduct some research. As it turns out, Nala has at least been with 6 people or has performed with 6 different people. So
only with my partner. And I do want to clarify something, not that it matters, but I get frustrated at the people on the internet saying like, oh, you have so many bodies. In the 5 years that I was on Only, I literally slept with 3 people, and 2 of those were my partners. Like I was in relationship with them for over a year.
I bet you won't fuck me in that bathroom.
I guarantee you I will.
No, you won't.
Definitely I'll fuck
you
you in the
won't
bathroom.
fuck me in that fucking bathroom.
We can do it literally here on the table. We got a bathroom.
Yeah?
Then come over, I arrived to this huge house in West Hollywood. She's butt naked.
You racked up a lower body count than probably the average American undergraduate.
Now, while I personally don't think that that's the most egregious thing in the world, well, at least not if you're not trying to have a relationship with that woman, it still is important to highlight that Nala is deceptive. She's not telling the full truth, or in this case, she's just straight up lying. That's just not true. Unless you want to give her the grace that she forgot, which kind of would say a lot by itself. So let's just hope she didn't forget and she actually was just lying. Listen, team, a woman 100% can find redemption. I don't really agree with memes like this, where we just say, well, I'm always gonna remember that you got your cheeks clapped on camera. Like, I get it, right? Like, I understand that there's a frustration with very many men in general, some Christians, some who aren't really, seeing a lot of young ladies, when they're done with their thoughty ways, ask for forgiveness in Christianity. And because the nature of Christianity is forgiveness and allowing a person to change and metamorphosize and be different, it's just appealing, just in its principal nature, to women like that. And it is a good thing. I think Christianity as an avenue is wonderful if used properly. And I do think that there are some thoughty bobanies who just, rest their weary heads in Christian spaces or rest their weary head in Christian churches where they're not really trying to listen to change and improve their character and become virtuous and help anyone else out. They just are tired of being embarrassed and made fun of and being used sexually. So they come here. To be fair, and I will grant them the grace that this is a better space to be in, the only issue is that if they're not the ones changing and they're infecting the space instead of actually being affected by it, then we have ourselves a mighty big problem. And so the issue with Nala isn't necessarily that Nala can't be forgiven particularly. It's that if the showmanship or this caricature, this ability that Nala has to create a facade and create the perfect character to fit into a space or fit into a mold becomes any example, then really we're all just being deceived by someone who really is a great pretender. So one thing that I kind of want to give my opinion on and kind of dismiss and then give an alternative theory on is the idea that Nala is grifting. I actually don't believe that Nala is grifting as a Christian at all. I don't really think the Christian market could unify itself consistently enough to support Nala beyond just giving her attention, really. And Nala's already confirmed that she does love attention.
But I just really wanted attention. And
no, I don't really think that Nala's trying to get more money, because if it's true that Nala has $9 million just now, she cashed out, then if Nala were to just live her life as if she had a 6-figure salary, she just made $100,000 a year, she just literally budgeted $100,000, just for the year, then Nala will be able to live for 90 years without ever working a day in her life again. She's good on that front. That's if she just budgeted $100,000 a year. In 90 years, she would have burned all of the money that she had. Now, this isn't even including any residual or passive income that she could generate in the future. So it's kind of insane when you really think about it. The reason why it's interesting to highlight this or talk about this is because, again, I don't think Nala's motivations in creating any perceived or at least assumed Christian facade has anything to do with money. I think the reason is actually a little bit more basic than just that, a little bit more primal, if you will. Now, this might just be the black pillar in me, the black pill dragon rearing its ugly head. But while I was conducting research into putting this video together, I noticed and I learned when I was listening to Michael Knowles, or at least an interview she did with him, that Nala is married. Now, who is Nala married to? Nala is married to this guy. Now, like I said, a little bit of that black pill dragon welling up within me, a little bit of that incel devil gene coming out, but this guy is pretty handsome. And what's interesting to me isn't just that he's just an attractive dude, but even the content that he created was something that Nala started to mirror on her own TikTok. And it isn't just that, but it's also how quickly the two of them got married that actually makes me think that Nala's conversion was really just her trying to bag this high value male. I don't have the exact calculation of when Nala would have met her now husband, but the space or gap in time of which they would have gotten married and the transition Nala has is most confusing. So if you do the math, I remember I asked my question on the Whatever podcast back in November. So it's May now to the time I'm recording this video, but let's scale it back a month into April. So from November to April, that's about 6 months of time in total. Now, what's interesting is that if Nala knew her now husband during the time of which I asked my question, why is honor and virtue not the most important thing to you? Then her answer and the way she responded to that question really gets thrown for a loop. Really, there's something kind of odd about how she would feel about men if she had this man in her back pocket the entire time.
Your question for the Nala.
Hello.
The Nala. The women generally, and a layup for Andrew. Why is honor and virtue not the most important thing about men to you? I only heard one lady talk about how character is important. How could you ever let someone without honor and virtue have S with you? Discuss, please.
Security.
Gravity.
Yeah.
But I feel like even so, men that I've seen and stuff, they lie. They fucking lie. It's not after anyone in general. So it's like,
yeah, but before
I'm not
you,
even looking.
Now, you could argue that the reason why she didn't want to ever bring up the fact that he existed while she was still doing her OnlyFans thing, which again would have been about 6 months ago, prior to the time when she started doing her interviews, is because she didn't want it to affect her bottom line. But that's still a little bit goofy in and of itself, because Nala already had $9 million static in her bank account from Go, so I guess you really just didn't want it to affect her. I don't know. That would be a little Maybe it's possible because, again, there are very many women that pretend to be single just for their entire stint in OnlyFans or pornography. So it could just have been her being consistent there, even though she knew the dude. However, it does still become a little bit odd considering that she would have had someone that would have shown her honor and virtue that she did ultimately end up marrying in the end. So, I don't know. But anyway, the reason why I bring this up as a piece of evidence, or at least something to consider, is that it would imply that she didn't know her then husband even existed to even use as an example of a male that has the qualities that she desires. Nala goes on to explain that when she met this guy, I'll let her tell the whole story. I don't really feel the need to do it.
More and more on a day-to-day basis, and I had met my current husband now on TikTok.
So that's is that news?
Yes, that's good news. Yes, it's very, very new news. I have a husband. I got married.
Marvelous.
So yeah.
And when did that happen?
This last Sunday. Yeah.
So we're filming this on what day is it? Wednesday?
Wednesday. Yeah.
So, and have you made a public announcement about this?
Nope.
So am I like the 15th person to find this out or something?
You're like the 7th person to find this out.
Right. Wow.
Not even my parents know.
That's great. Well, one does not congratulate a woman on getting married because even though popularly people do it, but it's sort of offensive because you're basically saying, oh, what, some man picked you? So really one says, best wishes. This is marvelous. One congratulates the man who I haven't met yet. I presumably somewhere.
You will for sure.
That's marvelous. So, and this was Easter Sunday.
This was Easter Sunday, Resurrection Day. What better day to get married? But we were ready. We were so ready. We knew months ago, like we wanted to get married to each other. That saying truly stands where when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Like I could not be more sure. Like absolutely not. And this man was the one who introduced me to Christ again. You know, I have this past with Christ where like I was a pastor's kid, but I never truly had a relationship with God. I was just a pastor's kid under like some umbrella. And that's not a relationship at all. That's like religion umbrella. So for me, he was the one who started speaking to me and praying over me. We were just friends, like nothing romantic at all.
How'd you meet?
We met on TikTok, actually. It was crazy.
Is that the first good thing that's ever come out of TikTok?
Absolutely.
It might be the only.
1,000,000%. But it started as such an amazing friendship. And he lived in Virginia. I lived in California. We didn't like touch or meet for months. We only spoke on FaceTime almost every single day, all day long. Like we got to know each other without any physical touch, which is like my love language. So that was crazy for me. Right.
But how does one meet on TikTok?
Okay, this was crazy. So he does like live battling on TikTok, and I was just swiping one night, and he's prior Air Force, and he had this like battle helmet on and like a bulletproof like vest on. It was amazing. And so he was in his like live room wearing that, and I was just so curious. I was like, why does this guy look like he's about to go into battle?
Wait.
And
you're telling me you marry this like Giga Chad Air Force like military guy, but he's also a total nerd who's like playing video games?
Yes. I'm so lucky. I swear, not even lucky. I'm blessed.
with your
yes, so blessed. But we met because I found him so funny on live. I was like, who is this guy? Because every time he got a big gift, he'd like throw his chair. I just loved his character. I was like, what? I have to get to know this guy. So we were just talking. Nothing sexual at all, which was odd for me because of my past. And I had been single then for about almost 2 years.
Now, this is something I've heard from very many ex-porn stars consistently. And even women that are currently doing pornography. They really appreciate men who kind of treat them like people. Which, well, go figure, right? They really are sticklers for handsome men that kind of just talk to them. And I do believe that part of the charm that this attractive high value male had for Nala is the fact that he is a handsome dude that probably really wasn't interested or didn't think too hard or didn't care. Now, I don't believe for a New York minute he didn't know who she was, but I can believe that he may not have been investing in any of her content. I can at least have the grace to give that, but the great pretending that he didn't know who Nala was, or that he didn't Google her at any point in time, one of the most prolific thought-evil bodies, one of the greatest students of Belle Delphine ever, and he never at any point just saw a meme of her in passing, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. He may not have known who she was, but he saw her. Now, it really doesn't matter if he knew or if he didn't know exactly who Nala was. Again, the fact that these guys got married in less than a year, or the time frame would have been longer than a year, is really, really strange, because that would mean that in the November to December time that Nala was on the Whatever podcast, where she was still, being a thought-evil body, and arguing with Andrew Wilson, to the time where she got married back before April at least, it leaves only up to about 4 to 6 months, maybe 2 months after her appearance in January, February, March, then April. Or maybe she got married in February, or, whatever the time span in between there, it's extremely quick if we assume that Nala didn't know this man during her appearance on the Whatever podcast. So how could she have been in the transition to quit OnlyFans while she's on the Whatever podcast, arguing her thought-evil body ways with Andrew Wilson, when in reality, the entire time, she had a fiancé in the back burner waiting for her to quit? And even if he wasn't waiting for her to quit, at least I hope he was, even if he wasn't actually waiting for her to quit, he still would have been in the background. He still would have been someone to her. So why is she defending the position and the virtues of thoughterry here on the Whatever podcast, only to then renege on it entirely, get baptized, and then quit, and then marry this guy again, what had to be less than a 6-month turnaround? It's like the most is 6 months, but it's less than 6 months. Okay, now remember, you cool cats, this is mostly conjecture. I don't have any hard-hitting facts or details or timeline, just some things that don't really seem to add up. But when we really bring it all together, when we come back down to Nala as a person, what is really bothersome, no matter how you cut this cookie, especially with all the parading that these different people did, like Michael Knowles and all these other different Christian interview stations did, was they tried to use Nala as an example of a radical change in Christianity, that Jesus Christ just really changed her. But the truth is, if it wasn't Jesus Christ that really changed Nala, and what really changed her was the fact that she wanted to impress the super Christian dude, or at least a feel-good Christian dude, so she could marry him because, there was nowhere else she could go from this point, then it's actually a lot more of a hollow transition than a spiritual or one worthwhile of discussing or talking about. The thing that makes Nala terrible as an example is Nala. It's not that there aren't thought-evil bodies who can change. I'm fine. I greatly prefer that thought-evil bodies change, 100%. Like, that's wonderful. Make no mistake. But it's Nala. Nala has shown that she has the ability to pretend. She has the ability to put on a caricature. We've seen her do it. She's explained that she did it when she was even younger. Why would this transition now be the genuine article? Why is this version of Nala more legitimate than the other versions of Nala? And honestly, I can't really say with certainty, especially with her lack of really reinvesting or doing anything helpful to the millions of young men that were in sexual sin to get her to the point where she is, that would really show any turnaround. To be honest with you, Nala may not even need to say anything to the young men. Maybe she can't really affect all those coomers. But what she can do is model herself and be anything positive to the young women and be a better example by showing her new virtues. But the truth of the matter is, the timeline is so short, she can't really effectively do that. So it was too early to really use her as an example in the first place. Because if she only radically changed 2 months ago to the time all the interviews were happening, then what time did she really have to change or metamorphosize, apart from just I deleted my OnlyFans. There's plenty of young ladies who never change, who delete their OnlyFans, not only because it wasn't successful, but because they got caught by their parents or caught by their boyfriend. So just the simple deletion of their OnlyFans, I'm going to be honest with you, that's not too much. Again, Nala deleting her OnlyFans after she had $9 million liquid sitting in her bank, cashing out like that isn't a stretch. It's not a grand transition. Again, Nala never has to work another day in her life. Like she wasn't using OnlyFans to live. The problem that I'm commenting on is that Nala deleting her OnlyFans as a grand gesture of her transition actually rings hollow. And it would really take a lot more time than that was ever allotted to really show that Nala is a different person or she is a more virtuous person. You just really can't tell. And ultimately, that spiritual journey really is Nala's, if it is indeed a genuine one and one that she's taking up with her husband. If you want my honest opinion, Nala should have never conducted any of these interviews. I'm talking about Michael Knowles, I'm talking about on here or anywhere. Be honest with you, Nala should have never embarrassed herself by leaving a huge long track record of just her acting like a clown in any other interview. Because ultimately, one of the biggest problems with Nala is the fact that we still refer to her as Nala, and that says everything, doesn't it? Much in the same way Lana Rhoades wants to try to renege, much in the same way Mia Khalifa wants to try to renege on her porn star ways, Nala is still using her porn star stage name, which means that anything she attaches with Christianity to Nala still has the pipeline in connection to the porn star that Nala was. Some people might ask, well, what is Nala to do? She has the platform with millions of people on it already. Well, here's the problem. Her audience of those million people were individuals that whacked off to her. What Nala needs to do, or what she should have done for a true hard mode transition, is to just create a whole new social media account if this is really the path she wanted to go on. Re-dye her hair brown, get all that red stuff out of it. Don't wait for your hair to grow out. Just clean it as best you can, re-dye it. You know, you actually speak on the things that you've learned when you've gone to church. You speak on the way you've been affected. You speak on how to be a better lady over time. You make a new account, you start a new journey, you tell us your real name, and you detach yourself from the Nala Ray facade. That is what I would suggest that she would have done. She would have came on as her actual name, with her actual brown hair, being an actual person, being kind and respectful. Which I actually don't doubt that Nala probably is a nice person to chat with. I could be wrong, but she doesn't really strike me as someone that is tough to get along with or speak to. But the problem is that she does strike me as someone that would be a little difficult to trust on a public stage. I don't think that she's garnered genuine good faith based on all of the performances that she has done throughout her tenure on the internet. And that is why I have quite the issue with her being paraded around, or at least I did. See, this is an old story. In conclusion, Nala is most certainly an intelligent woman who probably could do a lot for people. Just her ability to garner attention, her intelligence, her ability to recognize patterns, and just create is wonderful. Nala clearly has the ability to just sit down and just learn a whole new language. You know, she'll literally sit down and just practice bow staffing. She literally just is a physical specimen, you know, as far as ladies go, all by itself. Nala, I'm going to be honest with you, could be an incredibly amazing example of what a young lady could do and accomplish. But it is tainted by the fact that in order to get to this stage, Nala had to do the most base of what women are. And the most base form of what women are is just a sexual agent that can receive and can just be pumped and dumped on.
Oh my god, so I had to pull over to pee and this is the bathroom. Oh my god, I'm gonna get raped in here.
And I'm going to be honest with you, if women's path to greatness is always just her sexuality, then Nala's intelligence and her fitness prowess is always going to be overshadowed, because what really got Nala to this position was the fact that she could have sex, not really the fact that she is an extremely intelligent, well meaning person. Because the truth of the matter is, Nala could be. Again, Nala has a lot of qualities I think would make an excellent, wonderful person. But she also has proven her ability to be deceptive. And as such, a grain of salt has to be sprinkled on Nala's behaviors almost no matter what, because we do know that she has the capacity to lie and pretend. Again, Nala is an incredibly intelligent person, but she is still an attention whore. Woo! Okay. Wow. So, sorry it took me a little while to get this one done, guys. One thing that was kind of tough for me about this video was, one, kind of finding the time to sit down and record it. Two, was a little bit of the research and kind of planning, kind of figuring out what is important to say and what's not to say, because, you know, as you can see, the video is kind of long. And three, kind of how I even wanted to do the video, actually. I didn't really know if I wanted to keep it in the same vein previously or do a little bit of a callback here. And I think the long-term subscribers, the ones who for years and years ago, you know, I'll hit that nostalgia bug for them, is what I was hoping I was going to do with this one when I decided to finally sit down and put it all together. So in the future, we're going to have some new videos. They're going to be coming a lot faster than this one. Don't worry, won't have a long hiatus again, at least not foreseeably. Lots of ideas are coming out, rapid fire. You're going to be getting new videos very soon. So thank you so very much for sitting down and watching this long video. I appreciate the patience you guys had. And with that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys got something out to this video. And if you did, man, I don't know, go ahead and click the like button. Shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.